Okay, and welcome to H3, also known as Hopeifiers. I am the acapellas, and with me is the amazing brother Scott Sweetman. How you doing tonight, brother Scott?
I'm good now that I'm here. I was feeling a little run down this afternoon, but I started thinking about the show. I started thinking about seeing you and our viewers, and I started to get jacked up, started to get powered
Excellent.
up, and I feel good.
Excellent.
We're here. Yeah.
Well, I know that you have like an amazing show for us this evening, an amazing topic for us to follow. I'm excited about it. So that's great. Let's hear it.
I've got thinking about it, and spring's coming. The weather's changing. It depends on where you are right now in the world. But we had a lot of sun today. Did you get up much today, Al?
I did. It was a beautiful day. I was out talking to some people and having some fun and having some hugs. That was nice as well. Yeah, it was good.
Nice. Got to collect those hugs. Both you and I are it's on pause, but both you and I are motorcyclists, right?
Yes.
Not now on pause for both of us for different reasons. But when you went riding, they would always say, letting the smiles go by, right? A play on the word miles and smiles.
Yeah.
I think you've just transmuted that into hugs, just outside, letting the hugs go by, right? You're just eating them up.
I think you're right. And I can tell you this, hugs are way more safer than my motorcycle riding. I can assure you that, because I have a problem with this hand. It doesn't seem to be able to control the throttle very well. So, yeah.
But motorcycling is just one of those things. Like I used to love steeplechasing. Like Crowley can tell you about that. Jumping is obviously not my current physical condition, but loved it. Just the speed and the adrenaline, and the horse is right there with you, and you can feel their heart. And it's great. But going on a motorcycle on a curvy road and the speed and it just same feeling, right? Isn't that just wow?
Yeah. With my old FJR, I could get my leg right against the fairing, and I'd be leaning right over into the turn, right? And once you felt the pegs touch the ground, okay, that's good, right there. Let's hold it there, right?
Yeah. My dad gave me his old Goldwing. And I took all the fairing and everything off it, and all the bags, stripped it right down to a naked street bike. And boy, that was fun. Like there was a lot of bike there. And I used to just wind that thing out. And boy, it's like you're just sitting on top of an engine once you've taken all the fairing and everything off a Goldwing.
For sure. Yeah.
Then in Japan, I had a Montauk, a BMW.
Oh,
and boy, that's like your car, man. That was just my baby. It wasn't. I mean, it was fast, but in terms of handling, but that boxer engine was nice. Different feel, right? The pistons are horizontal rather than a lot of fun. And I didn't find people always say, "Oh, BMW, you're going to be broke down all the time." Never had a problem ever.
Well, those boxer engines were like super reliable, right? I heard all kinds of people have got like just zillions of well, I'm not sure zillions, lots and lots of kilometers, and they just keep on running, right? So yeah.
I had to sell it, couldn't import it back, and I heard from the guy, I don't know, last year or something, he's just going strong, travels all over Japan with it. It's like unbelievable. So, and our show tonight, we're not too far off topic. It's kind of about that. It's about life and beginnings and ends. And I think on the promo for the show, I said, is it a beginning or an ending? Because that's something we all deal with all the time, right? And when I was doing research, I came up with some really interesting stuff. And do you know what an Ouroboros is? People pronounce it differently. It's an ancient symbol of a snake or a dragon eating its own tail.
Oh yeah. Sure, I've seen it before. Yes.
Yeah. I gave one to Sabrina when she was little. She has it tattooed on her ankle, actually. And an Ouroboros is lots of meanings to it, but it's about, there's no end or beginning to an Ouroboros, right? It's a continuous loop and the snake kind of means life and death and circular, continual rotation of everything around us. Mm-hmm. And it's something I've been interested in for a long time, but certainly since somebody looked me in the eye and said, sorry, but you're not going to be here tomorrow. So get ready for that. That's a strange conversation to have the first time. And then the second or third or fourth time, it gets a little surreal. You're like, yeah, okay, we'll see. I won the last 3 times. Well, I'm putting money on me because the last time you said this, I was still here. and I'm still here now. So
exactly.
Yeah, but getting back to seriousness, as we get older, we begin to become aware, I think, that it's really hard to tell beginnings and endings, don't you
Mm.
think? When we're younger, it's always like, school's out, right? When you're a school kid, it's like, when's summer holidays? When's Christmas holidays? Right? And it's
Yeah.
always the end of school, the start of the holidays. That's like cool, right?
Pretty direct demarcation point there, right? Yes.
Yeah. I was always amazed with kids that saw it the other way. They're like, "Oh, school ends next week," and I was like, "School ends next week. I'm cutting an extra 3 days." And I like school, but it was always that way. And then I think as you get older, I don't know. What age do you think we start hating birthdays? I love them now, but that's for a different reason.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I remember when you're young, you're always like, oh, 16, I can get a driver's license. 18, I can go to the bar, right? There's like the very things, things that happen that they're big signs of freedom, if you will, right? Or of becoming marks of becoming an adult, I guess you'd call it, right? That kind of a thing.
Rites of passage. That's a good point. Yeah.
Rites of passage, yeah. But after that, like, what does it matter after you're 18 kind of a thing, right? So yeah, there's not another thing that says, at 30 this is going to happen, or at 42 this is going to happen, right? So
the doctor, I can't remember what we were talking about, something, and I said, "Oh, do you think this is an issue?" He's like, "No, you're just getting old." And it's like, yeah, well, I guess that's true. But it was funny as a medical diagnosis, right? That just old age, we assume life's going to go downhill, which isn't true. Your experience over the last since COVID has been like anti-aging, right? Like you've gone backwards. Really?
I truly have. Like, I feel and look younger than I did before COVID. Like, if you look at pictures from me 4 years ago and you look at them today, I look like a younger, more vibrant human being. So
Absolutely. Like because we have your stills and everything for media and stuff professionally, I can tell you that when you go through them, if you're not careful, you put them in the wrong order, because you do look younger now than you did 5 years ago, which is pretty amazing. If you came up with some story, I mean, the truth is you share it every week that we're here, and anyone who listens to you, there's no big elixir, fountain of youth, magic stuff that you can sell to anyone. It's just making some choices and following through, really.
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff, right? So
Yeah, and like, I'm not saying my way is the only way, but for me, singing is certainly something that's been a huge restoration of my health and vitality. Is my daily singing practice. So yeah.
Well, kind of what got me thinking about this is, I pull a lot of stuff from Psychology Today and other sources like that, trade journals that because we deal with hope and happiness. A lot of the field of psychology deals a lot with that. And I came across something called adjustment disorder. Have you ever heard of adjustment disorder?
I have not, Scott.
Yeah, me either. And it's really quite common. In a mental health setting, they estimate that probably 50% of patients have one level or another of adjustment disorder. And that's really quite high. And the symptoms are depressed mood, anxiety, I'm reading to make sure I get them right, lack of appetite, difficult concentrating, norm violating or inappropriate conduct, getting into fights, driving reckless, etc., problems at work or school, physical complaints, jitteriness, fatigue, social isolation, withdrawing from normal activities, suicidal, self-deletion. Those types of things are symptoms of this. What it's caused by is when changes, and they can be good or bad. That's what I found really interesting. It's not necessarily sad or bad changes, but we can be affected by, like, getting a new job, which we would think would, like, a promotion would be positive, but
Right.
there's also go ahead.
But whatever the change in your life, positive or negative, it's about the disorder in adjusting to that change, is what you're telling me. Is that where you're?
Yes,
that's what.
yeah, and it's really quite common. Like I said, 50% is an estimate. 20%, between 5 and 20% officially are diagnosed as outpatients in a psychiatric setting. So that's high.
Yes.
And prevalent in men and women the same. There's no difference between men and women. Age doesn't seem to affect it. Normally, it doesn't last longer than 6 months, or it turns in another situation. It can affect children and adults. Children, teens especially, and I thought this was interesting, displaying more negative behavior. And so when I was reading through this, it said that if you have teenagers and they're becoming disruptive, or suddenly they're starting to, disobey agreed upon rules or those types of things, that you should be looking for something that's changed in their lives. Could be positive, could be negative, and they could be suffering from adjustment disorder, which probably most teenagers have that go on at some time or another.
I would think so. Yeah.
How are you with sudden change? Do you no problem? Take it in stride?
As of late, I've had quite a bit of change happening in my life, Scott. And I kind of go a little bit of a roller coaster. I'm doing fine, and then this happens, and then you feel kind of beat down, and then think about it a little bit, and okay, it's all going to work out. Here's what I see the future's going to look like. Here it's a little rough, but it's going to get there, right? And then I'm good for a while, and then something else happens. Somebody says some insurers say some mean things to me or treat me like, and then it's like, oh my goodness. So, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when I was coming up with this topic, I started down and I thought, well, there's been so much going on in Al's life. Is this like an appropriate thing? But we all have it at throughout our lives, right? And when I was reading this, we all, of course, jumped to times. Oh boy, boy, when this happened, this was bad. But as we look back, we forget how traumatic those times were. Like, we're going through them right now.
Yes.
Yes, they seem really like big and clear and whatever. But what's really interesting about adjustment disorder is usually can't be fixed by drugs. They
cannot be.
No. Cannot be. And as we know, modern psychology is relying more and more on pharmaceuticals. No slight intended, although I think most people know where we stand on
sure.
Overuse of prescription drugs. Overuse of any kind of drugs, but yeah. So, and it seems to have not, if it's dealt with, it tends not to turn into trauma, right? So it's different from mental conditions that stem from trauma, rather than adjustment disorder. So there's kind of a difference in there, where adjustment disorder is quite common, but the prognosis is quite positive if it's dealt with. If it's not dealt with, you start going past the 6 months, then it can turn into depression. It can turn into some much more serious. I shouldn't use the word serious, because it's all, anything that's not wellness is serious, right? So, but yeah, really interesting in that respect. So how they treat it is the things we talk about all the time. Right? How do you deal with change? You're dealing with a lot of change right now. Maybe you don't want to talk about it, but just in general, thinking back, you've a lot of things. You've been a parent. You've started lots of organizations. You've done a lot of volunteer work, which is often really thankless. How do you deal with those changes?
Well, one thing that I think I have learned that I'm trying to get better at is that instead of just like dealing with it yourself, not expressing it, not like just like, I'm not going to tell anybody this is my problem, I'll deal with it, blah blah blah. I'm a tough guy, I don't have to get anybody's help. As opposed to, instead of that, if I now express, I'm struggling with this, man, this is hard on me, and blah blah blah, and I just, to you, which I've done many times before, or to my other good friends that I have, say, hey, this is what's happened in my life, and this is like a challenge for me. And then as I'm halfway through explaining it, it'll just be like, okay, it's messy now. That's right. But what's the end result going to be? How is this going to play out? It's going to play out very well. So just embrace the messiness. And when you get like an empathetic listener who says, oh man, that's gotta be tough and blah, blah, blah. It's like all the sting of it goes away, right? It's just like, all right, just release it. I've expressed it. I've had some, what would you say? Some encouragement, some support, some, it's going to be all right. And then, just things go on kind of a thing. All of the things that would otherwise concern you and cause you discomfort and cause you maybe even physical pain, right? Just kind of goes away when you have the opportunity to express it to an empathetic listener. So yes. So thank you, Scott, for being one of my amazing empathetic listeners. So thank you.
Well, and you for me, buddy. But that's really true. And that's what the research showed me, is that basically dealing with changes is part of your toolkit for a healthy, happy life, which is where it fits right in with H3. And that's to identify your support network or your support system, and to be aware of that. Like you identified me and other people, and we identified motorcycles, something that was good for us in terms of supporting us. Because you have to concentrate. You can't daydream on a motorcycle. You have to be in the moment and really focused on what you're doing. And I find cars are bad because they make them so comfortable, and that you kind of can. I hate when you get home and you can't remember the last 5 minutes of the trip. Doesn't that scare you? It's like, holy cow.
Exactly. Where was I exactly? Right. You weren't obviously engaged in what you're doing. Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
And scientists say that actually that's normal. Our brain automates repetitive things to lower our load, our mental and physical load. We're thinking about things. It drains our system, right? We do become physically exhausted from it. So things that we repeatedly do, like backing out of our driveway, for example, usually you're on autopilot. Your brain says, oh, I know this. I don't have to think about it. And you just tune out. And you are going on autopilot. And it's something quite interesting, maybe we'll talk about it another show, is the attempts that have been made to stop people like pilots or people that are in high risk jobs from their autopilot taking over, where for whatever reason people think that being at a heightened state of readiness is better than the mind saying, oh, I can shut down a lot of this other stuff going on and just do this by memory. So interesting topic, but definitely for sure, like you say, identify your support system. Look for help if you need it. Like if you find shortcomings in your support system or you can't think of somebody to talk to, we haven't said it in a while. What's the number you can call in Canada?
211. Yeah, 211 is a Canada-wide support number that you can call for any help with anything 24 hours a day, right? So, but then also, if you have an employee family assistance plan where you work, use that employee family assistance plan. There's all kinds of mental health resources that are available. I go see a psychologist, I see a life coach, I see a psychiatrist. I use like every resource that's available for me, and to kind of manage my life, right? And they're available, so, and to have somebody from outside of your situation who can look at it with an objective kind of vision and say, oh, okay, I understand what you're faced here, but it sounds like you've got these steps in place already, right? So where's the big concern you have here, right? It looks like you're on the path to get to arrive at a better place, right? Or wait a minute, have you thought of this? Maybe you're not on the right path. Maybe this is, this will help you more so, right? So, yeah.
That's a really great point, and I think it ties in with the stuff I was reading on, and things like death, a big one, and it's not something that I personally have had to deal with, but I've had a lot of good friends who have had to deal with it, and that's sexual identity or gender identity or the issues. In the past that was just something you don't ask, don't tell. It was like, don't talk about it and everything will be fine. Not fine, not a good plan for anyone. But there's a lot of adjustment disorder associated with that, not just to the person that's experiencing or is in a situation where they need to, come out, or they want to share with other people what they feel inside or what they believe or what they know, but for the people around them too. And it talks about how a lot of parents now, when their children come out as trans or non-binary, that a lot of parents don't know how to cope with that, and they suffer from adjustment disorder. It's not that they don't love their child, it's not that they're not accepting, it's just that it's a big change, and they mentally and physically don't know how to deal with it. And of course that can be perceived as rejection. It can be, can just make what can be a wonderful situation or a difficult situation or a tense situation even more difficult if that's perceived, because I think what we forget is that, when something happens, like all the stuff you're going through now, and you're doing a great job dealing with stuff that really you shouldn't have to deal with, but that's how the world works. But it affects me too, right? Like, as someone who loves and cares about you, I can't help but be affected by it. I have to say, yeah, it's not right. What I was going through now isn't right. It shouldn't happen to him, shouldn't happen to anyone, but it is. So let's, do what we can. Let's stick together. Right's on his side, and we'll see it through to the end. So in reading this, and there was a lot of case studies I read, and you sort of have to, when you're reading them, it can be a trigger, right? Because they're talking about case studies of people where, children have passed away, and, like I said, the sexual identity and gender identity and things. But going through so much of this, you start to realize that, boy, change is just what happens. It's not anything to do with who you are, or what you've done or haven't done, or it just is, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the constant of life is change, right? That's how it works. Like, things are going to change. So, and if you can kind of see it's coming and be prepared for it, they're easier transitions, right? But they're going to happen. So, yeah.
The background tonight I chose specifically, it's Japanese. If you can't interpret that, there's cherry blossoms on this side, and I faded out there for a minute on my green screen, and mountains or clouds and water and all sorts of things going on there. Because as you know, when I became really sick and they said I was going to die, I was in Japan. And when I first recovered, I was scared of death. Holy cow. I'd never been scared of death. I grew up on a ranch. Life and death were two sides of the same thing. When I was a little kid, I had a neighbor who we called uncle. Called all our neighbors uncles or aunts when we were little on the farm. He said, if you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. Full stop. No more explanation. None needed. Just if there's going to be life, there's going to be death. Look around you, it's everywhere. That's just how it is. And I remember that when I was in Japan, and I got thinking about a concept in Japanese called mono no aware. Have you ever heard of mono no aware?
I have not.
Mono no aware is some people say it's untranslatable. It's often it's translated oddly to my way of thinking. My background in Japan, of course, was in education, but I also worked with Bunkusho, the Ministry of Culture, and so dealt a lot with art and artists and historical things. But mono, the first word, means thing, an object. Yeah, an object. And the second part is a Heian period, a time period, expression of surprise. Okay. So when you put them together, you have a thing and you have right? And it gets translated as a lot of different pathology of things. But really what it's talking about is impermanence. And, a lot of people give examples of cherry blossoms and fall leaves as examples of mono no aware, which is the understanding when you understand that things aren't permanent.
Right.
They change, they die, they break, they disintegrate, they're reconstructed. And there's that moment, that moment is how I like to think of mono no aware. And so it's been used a lot in film. It's been used a lot. It changes throughout time. So its original meaning is different than what we think of it today. But really, for me, and this is how it helped me and why I wanted to talk to you about it, is it's the impermanence of all things. Connected to this is also wabi-sabi, which we've talked a little bit about before. Wabi-sabi is sort of finding the beauty in flaw.
Celebrating, you explained that one to me before. So it's like celebrating the imperfection, celebrating the uniqueness of the imperfection. Let's put it that way.
Be aware of them. But mono no aware is more about it. there's an element of sadness, but not sadness once you accept that it's all around you, that that it's everything you look at. I will never look at you this way again, because a moment later you are not the same you are right now.
Right.
And that realization is Mona no Aware.
So, Scott, can I just make an observation?
Yeah.
Mono no Aware. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Mona no Aware.
Yeah. So you just said it's untranslatable, and then you translated it. So here on Hopeifiers H3, we do the impossible. The words that are untranslatable, Scott Sweetman translates them for us. So there we go. Thank you, Scott.
And because I read in lots of places untranslatable, lots of people translate it as the pathos of things. Sure, I can understand all that. Awareness, sensitivity to the ephemera. There's a great word. You don't hear that word every day. Ephemera. In the the glimmer, the things that make us what we are. But for me, when you break it down to the meanings of the word, the kanji that are used, the characters, thing, and then surprise, it makes sense, because at some point you realize that this is not real. As soon as I say this, it's the next moment. So the only moment that truly exists is gone before we can capture it, right?
Yeah.
And you start thinking about that. For me, and this is why I'm sharing this, is because being told you're going to die and suffering the way I did with fevers, and it turned out cooked by pituitary and putting on all the weight and all of this horrible stuff that was going on. I was scared of death. I didn't sleep. I didn't dream for 2 years. That's not supposed to be possible. But I know when I started dreaming again, it was 2 years later, because I had spent 4 months basically dreaming nonstop, right? When I was in coma. Anyway, and once I realized that I'm already dead. If you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. There's only this moment that's certain, and it's gone as soon as I say it, or at that instant. And for me, that's that surprise, right? That every moment is change. So there is no big change coming. It's all change.
It's all change. Yeah.
Do you think that's crazy, or do you think that's understandable?
I think that's healthy. I think, when you started the show, you said something like, "I'm still here," and it made me think of that song by Paul Thorne, "I'm Still Here," because it's a celebration that you made it to another day. Hallelujah!
Let's hear a little. Can you sing us a little?
Sure. My next door neighbor Joe was out in his yard, walked up by the mailbox, got hit by a car. I saw it from my front porch while drinking sweet tea. Well, I guess I was lucky. It could have been me. I'm still here. I made it to another day. I'm still here. That's more than some can say. When I get down, Lord, I don't shed a tear. I sing glory, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Praise the Lord. I'm still here.
See, that to me is Mona no Aware. That's the cherry blossoms, chrysanthemum blooms, fall. I'm sure there's a lot of Japanese people that are going to write me and say, "What are you talking about?" But yeah, just when you start to think about the fact that we are change. Everything in us, every cell in our body, there is nothing static in the universe. It's all moving, right? And and so then for me, well, of course I'm going to die. I'm already dead, really. The minute I'm this, I'm no longer this. I'm something else. And I know that sounds corny, but when you're faced with it, for me, that was a way to deal with it. And sometimes, I don't have it all figured out. Sometimes I get scared, when they tell me I've got infection and, this wound is opened up again, or those types of things. And they're like, "Oh yeah, this is not good." Yeah, I still get scared, no question. But I do take, of course, my support network, and I know you and the other people that are close to me get tired of listening to it all. But the truth is, I try to remember Mona no Aware, that beyond wabi sabi, which is really seeing the beautiful in the mundane, or the changing, dead, broken, whatever. Mona no Aware reminds me that everything is change.
Mhm.
There is no existence outside of change.
Okay, Scott, I gotta ask you a serious question now.
Yeah,
Have you
ask
watched
away.
Fantastic Fungi? If you have not, we're ending the show right now. You have not.
I have
Scott
made a date to
Freeman.
watch it. I have made a date to watch it. I have
I
made
have.
a date to watch it.
Oh
I
my goodness.
have.
Okay,
I
that's
have.
good. You made a date. You're
I
getting
have.
closer. All right.
Yeah, I have. And
Okay.
I do really want to watch it because it keeps coming up. So it's like the universe is hitting me with a stick and is saying, the universe and Al, watch that darn show. And it's got a great name. How can you not love the name, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's a really good show. I don't know if I told you that we're having the thing on Friday night down at tomorrow night at Sunnyside School at 7 o'clock. We're gonna have a free airing of the show Fantastic Fungi and have some face painting and some snackies and some balloons and it's gonna be a fun event. And the movie Fantastic Fungi is all about that cycle, right? Yes, there's a death, but then there's a rebirth, and there's a this becomes this energy transmutes into this energy, and it just keeps on this cycle, right? It's and just the awareness and the presence to be there to have that experience that this is what's happening, right? This is what's going on. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, and I think that one of the things that, and I know as a parent that it was really important we teach our children stability, right? Like I read all the parenting books because I was freaked out. Twins, what are we going to do? And then they tell you that higher order multiples, the more kids you have at one time, the higher the risk of like abuse and bad parenting and all these things. So I'm like freaked. So I was like reading. Fleur was doing all the suffering and growing big and stuff, and I was just freaking out reading everything in sight. And they say stability and set boundaries and stick by them, and your child needs that solid kind of thing. And I thought about it now that they're growing up, and I of course I had good intentions, but I raised my kids to be crazy and enjoy life and do the things that they want to do, not necessarily the things that I said they should do or not do. But I wonder if we shouldn't, in our culture, teach a little bit more of the understanding that there isn't that we don't need training wheels to be happy or safe, right? Like, and I'm not saying go out and do risky things. I just think the idea that we are change, we are good and bad and alive and dead and all of those things at the same time in one place. It kind of sounds like Schrodinger's cat, but our state is really relative. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it makes real good sense to me, Scott. Yeah,
I think time, the concept of time, we invented time, right? Humans invented the concept of time. I don't think it serves us as well as we think it does.
No, probably not. Like, I mean, if we kind of were more dialed into nature and connected with our nature and nature in general, right? When we would rise, when we would go to sleep, when we would eat, it wouldn't be by, oh, it's 12, I better eat something. It's gonna be, oh, I'm hungry now. They're like, oh, I have an appetite now I'll eat, right? And that could be for some of us 11 o'clock and some at 4 o'clock, right? So it's just like I think there's a lot of artificialness in that has made it has not been as conducive for us living the best life. Let's put it that way. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I've fought insomnia since I was really, really young. And my Tamagotchi, do you know what a Tamagotchi is, Al?
No.
A Tamagotchi is a toy that came out, I think, in the like 60s or 70s. And it's a tiny little pocket friend. And basically, it's a little character that you have to feed and do things to.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember those. Yeah.
And I always wanted to have one, and I never had one when I was a kid. I went to college at like 16, right? So I didn't have those kind of fun things. And that's not true. I had a great childhood. But anyway, Sabrina sent me one. And so now I have this little Tamagotchi thing, and I've misplaced it now, and he's probably going to die. Sabrina got one.
That was the little panda you showed me just like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago?
No. I still have the panda.
Okay, you got the panda. All right.
For those of you that don't know, my nickname is Panda. No, this is I wish I could find it because probably getting eaten or something. Sabrina's ran away on her. She wasn't very good looking after it. She said, "Oh, I'm not ready to be a mother." My tongue, she ran away. But mine is somewhere getting. Mine's a demon hunter from an anime. He's probably getting eaten by demons right now as we speak. Anyway, going back to the squirrel. Going back to the topic of the show, what we were talking about is that time, I think, is so artificial, and in every my undergraduate degree was in religious studies, and every holy book that I know about, that I've ever read or studied, even in passing, there's a passage in there saying, look, there's a time for sowing, there's a time for reaping, there's a time. The message changes, but there's a really clear message that there is an appropriate time for everything. It doesn't say you shall do this on April 24th. It says there is a time where this is the right time, right? And usually you'll know the right time. And so, but I think, especially with the Industrial Revolution, our society started to completely revolve around time, not on an agrarian system, because as a species, we've tracked agrarian cycles for longer than we've had, production farming. But in terms of, the thing on our wrists where we keep track of, I have to start work now. I have to go to bed now. That kind of mentality. We haven't been as healthy, right? Like if you look at a lot of the mental and physical health conditions, a lot of them are connected to time.
Yes. Right? Yeah. And I might add, trying to ram as much as you can into this time frame, right? I have this many hours, and you try and be so productive, be so busy, and there's times you have to do that, but not all the time. Like, it's certainly not, I don't think that's how we're meant to live our lives, that we're always like on the run, stressed out, that we're looking at our clock and pressing on the gas pedal to get to the next appointment or whatever it is our commitments are, right? That kind of a thing. So, because that's when, like, what happens, like, we hurt ourselves, right? When we're in that situation, we're trying to go too fast for just the situation will allow, right? So,
as I've gotten older and spend more time introspecting and really being aware of my health, because it's become, I didn't have a choice. Decided I was going to be more aware of my health, which I think is a blessing in a way.
Yes.
I realized that I, as an organism, don't like negativity, and I don't like negative people, and I don't like negative experiences, and that seems obvious, but it's not, right? We spend a lot of our time forcing ourselves to do negative things, even though I can do this, it's my responsibility. Men are really bad for that, where we place expectations on ourselves that no one else has, but we somehow, we say, because I'm a man, I have these things I have to do. And I'm sure it's the same for women, but I'm not one, so I can only speak to being a man, really, in personal experience, right? But do you find yourself propelled by, maybe not so much now, but propelled by expectations that aren't your own, where you think that you have to do these things?
Less and less.
We'll pass on that one. We'll just leave that one alone. No, seriously. So I think that time is part of that for sure. But I think that Mono no Aware, going back to that, and that understanding that life is transience, is a really cool idea. There was a group of monks. Let me find this here. I want to share it with you. I thought you would really like this. Let me see if I can find it. I've got it on one of like 10 screens. Okay, so there's a group of monks, and we all know what monks are, right? And just let me see here. Oh, come on now. Oh, see, technology is foiling me. My mouse is saying, no, I don't want to scroll. Okay. There we are. I've found what I was looking for. Okay, so there's a group of monks, and they're called the Yamabushi monks, and they do a yearly trek up this mountainside in northern Japan, the Diwa-Sanzen Mountains, and they believe in something called Yuki Tamo, which means literally, I humbly accept with an open heart. Okay, and so they go on this pilgrimage, this hard walk up this mountain, cold, knots of stuff. And their only goal is to understand Yuki Tamo. I humbly accept with an open heart everything that happens to them.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's cold. It was supposed to be nice. Suddenly it rains. They're soaked. They're walking up the mountainside. Yuki Tamo.
Mm.
I humbly accept with an open heart that this rain is happening.
Mm.
Right? What else can you do?
Yeah.
Right? You're out there. Yeah. You learn to accept it, right? But you can change that to normal life, right? You're about to lose your job. Yuki Tamo. Accept it. What I mean, feeling bad about it, you know what I mean? Those types of things. You had a silly accident, right? Like how many times, I don't know about you, but I often hurt myself doing something silly. Like I know that if I, reach over here while I'm balanced on one foot and holding onto the dog in the other hand, the chances of me wiping out are pretty high, but I do it anyway, right?
Mm. That's a man thing. Yeah. Yeah. I got that as well. Yeah. I have that same affliction. Yeah.
And so the idea of Yuki Tamo means acceptance to the core.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify. I'm not a nippophile. It's not that I do love Japanese culture, but I almost died there, right? So I had to deal with it for years. I had to deal with all of this trauma and stuff happening to me. And so I looked to the culture around me to find, guidance. Of course, being raised Christian, I looked to Christian faith too, and I have a lot of that going on as well. But Yuki Tamo means acceptance to the core. Accept all the good things, all the bad things, because this moment is done.
Mm-hmm.
The next moment is unknown. All kinds of things can happen, right? And you were talking about that. We had a conversation last week before last, and you said almost something like that. Like you don't know what's coming next. I mean, you hope that it's this, but ultimately you don't know what's going to happen next. So you have to wait and see, right? And whatever it is, you're going to deal with it because what choice do you have?
Yeah. What was the name of that the monks did when they were going up the mountain? What's it called again?
Their belief or their pilgrimage?
The word that you used to describe it.
Yuki Tamo.
Yuki Tamo. And it's basically where whatever is you accept. That
I humbly accept with an open heart. And the humble side of it is important because you're not saying I have to accept this, so I'm going to. Right. It's not anger saying I'm too weak to get back at you now.
Right.
But when I can't, I'll accept it for now. But when I'm strong enough, boy, you're going to pay. No, it's like, you know what? The best thing for me as an organism is to just accept what's happening right now and realize that it may end in the next moment or it may not. It may end in the moment after that. Right.
Yeah. And it kind of, sorry, you were finishing your thought.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
I was just going to say it kind of resonates with me in terms of the belief that we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and everything that happens, like every person we meet, every experience we have, every approval, every rejection, everything that happens is unfolding for our benefit. There's lessons we're learning, and we chose this life. We chose to be here at this time to have this experience, and these lessons that are for us. For me, sometimes I'm a slow learner. I have to repeat the same lesson a few times before I get it. Maybe others learn quicker, or others learn without having to experience too much pain. But if depending on, you're going to learn the lesson, but it's just kind of how many times you have to do it in order to get it right. So is the way I see it. So
you're a Yamabushi monk.
I didn't know that, but I'm a
Yamabushi monk, right?
Yeah.
Yamabushi. Yama is mountain, and Bushi is mouth. So the mouth of the mountain is like the base, right? So it's the opening to the mountain, and because they do this pilgrimage. And what you just described is exactly the same thing, right? And they find freedom, and you say, well, freedom, walking up a mountainside in the rain and cold and freezing and sun and whatever. How is that freedom? The freedom comes from accepting and realizing whatever gets thrown at you, and realizing that usually things happen to us and come and go so quickly that we don't even know, right? Mm-hmm. I always make it. I don't remember when anyone I love died. I never memorize their death. I remember when they were born, but for me, it's unimportant. It makes some people I know a little bit angry. Well, you don't remember when your dad died. Yeah, purposefully I don't, because it's unimportant. He's not dead in my mind or my heart.
Right. Right.
My grandparents, they're in existence in one form or another to me, right? Which is
they're readily available to you just from a memory of your grandpa, right? Boom, there he is. That grandpa's with me right now, right? So,
well, and of course, I can't hug him, but
right.
I can remember hugging him,
Yeah.
and there was times when he was alive that I couldn't hug him.
Yeah.
That we were in a different place, or we were too far away, or because things change and there is no permanence,
Right.
And I really think that from that comes freedom, and growth, because when you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, without that, like if you're not, if you change is permanent, everything, there is no permanence, right? Everything is impermanent. Then all we have is this moment right now, right? That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we got is this moment right now. And if this moment right now, we're not in pain, we're not hungry, we're not in, in any kind of discomfort, it's a pretty amazing moment, right? Like that's incredible, right? Even
if we are, it's still an amazing moment.
Agreed. Right? Agreed. It's the experience you're having. So that's an amazing moment, right? Yes, I was discounting the pain and stuff, but you're right that whatever your experience is, it's your experiencing, and that's the only thing that you can have in this moment, right? So
no, you're 100% right, Al. Like the Dalai Lama said, if I have a scrap of food, if I have a scrap of cloth protecting my body, if I have something over my head to protect me from the sun and rain, it's a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's true. But even when you don't have those things, it's a good day. It could be better, sure, but it's still a good day. And the article that I was talking about, the Yamabushi monks, was talking about how people misunderstand Zen, and they think that Zen is all tranquility and happiness. Yamabushi monks say no. It's about accepting whatever the crazy universe that we live in throws at you, because you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
It's coming, and so much of it is chaotic and random, and like a four-leaf clover. As a kid, I looked for them everywhere, and then I would stop looking for them, and my brother would push me down, or we'd run into each other, something. I'd look over and there'd be a four-leaf clover. Unpredictable. And I think that that's sort of the story of everything we talked about today. Is, of course, there's there's my memory going on me again. Change, disorder. Where's my notes? Nope. My other notes. It's not depression. What's it called?
Impermanence?
No. I'm talking about the diagnosis. Adjustment disorder.
Adjustment disorder. Yes, yeah. Adjustment disorder.
Yeah. Adjustment disorder is something that we should all be aware of. And if we're suffering, go to your support group, go to 211, get whatever help you need to get through it. But the rest of the time, I think it's important to consider that our perspective may be a little bit skewed by our culture too, in that, I need these things to be happy. I need and because look, if you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. If you like flowers, they're going to die, and you're going to have brown sticks and stalks, and if you can learn to appreciate that state as well as the flowers, you'll be much happier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you can only appreciate beauty in a narrowly defined way if you can only appreciate life and existence and happiness in this perfect, controlled way. Boy, you're going to be really unhappy.
There's a lot of room for disappointment then, in there, right? Yeah.
And I think that for me, in dealing with almost dying, and the fact that we are going to die, and I don't want to die, I want to live forever. I'm not gonna. That's the surprise ending, right?
Yeah.
That's the surprise to us all. You love someone, they're gonna die. You hate someone, they're gonna die.
Yeah.
You're gonna have livestock, you're gonna have dead stock. And for a lot of us, death is the worst thing that we can think of, right? Like,
Right.
or
Well,
some
some people public speaking would be ahead of death.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, they should just have a show like this, and that goes away really quickly.
Exactly.
But no, I think that, both of us really share a strong belief in accepting, boy, we don't have control over, this rock spinning around the sun. We don't have control over what happens to us from moment to moment. But we do have control over how we react to it, right?
Yes.
And sometimes we don't even have that in terms of our physical reaction. We can hedge our bets, and we should, right? Eat healthy, be as healthy as you can, be as prepared as you can, but be accepting when the forecast says it's going to be sunny and warm and it's cold and rainy, because that's the nature of our existence.
That's going to happen. Yeah, exactly.
So tomorrow night, can you run the details down on tomorrow night's event? I just want people to hear about the fungi, because that's important.
Yes. So tomorrow at 7:00 at the Sunnyside School, and the Sunnyside School is, if you're going from Lethbridge towards Coaldale, there's a road called Sunnyside Road. It is also called Range 21-2. If you turn onto that road and go 6 kilometers north, that where the pavement ends is where this little rural school called Sunnyside School is. And we're going to be having airing of the movie Fantastic Fungi, and we're going to have some snackies and some face painting and some balloons, and it's going to be a fun community event. Come and be part of it. You're welcome to come. There's no charge to it, and come on out and enjoy some time with us. And if you see me there, come on over. You will see me there. When you see me there, come on over and get a hug. I'll have my.
You might not see you there, Al. I mean, life is impertinent, right?
Oh, that's true. That's what I shouldn't be so bold. Probably you're going to see me there, but we don't know for sure.
You're planning on it, but if the universe has other plans, Earth may not be here by then. But yeah, all joking aside, it's going to be a great event. We're going to try and make it as well. Sounds like a lot of fun. If you can't make it, tell somebody who might enjoy going. It's a cool little place. That hall is just like this little center of community life, kind of out on its own, right? And you can't miss it, because you're driving along and the pavement suddenly goes and look to your right, and it's there. Yeah, so that's it. Stop there. So cool. So I wish you a good Yamabushi time. Climb that mountain, buddy. Accept with humble. What's their saying? I love that. Humbly accept with an open heart. I need to get that tattooed on my arm to remember. So, from the Acapellists, my good friend, and myself, Scott Sweetman, humbly accept with an open heart the change that is our reality, and the universe willing, we will be here next week at 7 p.m. with another installment of H3 for health, hope, and happiness. Hope to see you then. Thanks, Al.
Get a Matson to our indigenous brothers and sisters. See ya.